my name is Jane McCrane, and I'm the Managing Director for Media Entertainment at Box. I've always loved entertainment, and I've always loved technology. What I'm really passionate about is the intersection of the two. And I'm here today at Neue House, Hollywood's newest creative community, with two of my favorite executives, Michael Keithley and Matt Cohen. And we're going to discuss the intersection of entertainment and technology and how the two impact each other. Guys, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So, what I thought would be great is a quick introduction of, your careers and a little bit about the two of you.
Michael Keithley. I've had the privilege of being the CIO at Creative Artists Agency for 25 years, almost 25 years. Came to that in the technology industry, and I feel very fortunate that I'm at the intersection of Hollywood and Silicon Valley.
Matt?
Matt Cohen. I'm a partner and founder at Dexstar Artist Management. I manage a wide variety of artists. My main or most famous artist, I should say, is Steve Aoki. I do bands like Holy Ghost and Classics and RAC. But beyond myself, we have about 80 artists we manage collectively, ranging from the rock side, Jane's Addiction, Smashing Pumpkins, Blink-182, to more to the indie stuff, Liz Phair and Air, and then a lot of the dance stuff like Steve and Dioro and DJ producers.
Yeah. So Matt, it's actually been almost 2 decades since Napster came on the scene in 1999 and iTunes in 2001. Music was the first space to be really disrupted by technology. What have you guys learned from that?
Well, I was there from ground zero. I actually went to UCLA. I was attending UCLA when Napster hit, and prior to Napster, most people don't remember, there was something called Scour that was developed in the UCLA dorms. So I was pirating everything I could, staying in the dorms using Scour, and then Napster came and it blew our minds because now we couldn't just, we were able to search not just in the dorms but worldwide. I distinctly remember, I was already into the music industry, and I was interning at Def Jam, and somebody came to our school to speak, some music industry person, and gave this whole spiel, and I did raise my hand, and my question was like, so with Napster, how are you going to pivot? How are you going to change with the introduction of digital music? And she just wrote me off, she's like, it's going to come and go, it's completely illegal, we're not even worried about it. And I was like, that's just, even as like a 19-year-old, I was like, that seems stupid. Like everyone I know was using it. At this point, I think it's completely changed consumption, I guess twice now in the last 20 years, going from the download format, which was a pivot, and then now to a streaming format, which is another pivot, which is, we've kind of gone from being okay with not physically owning the music, the song, to the record, the CD, the 8-track, to now being okay with not even physically owning the digital file and just kind of paying for the rental rights to listen to it. So it's been a shift, and it's been interesting to try to keep up with that shift and continually adjust our strategies, which you have to do to keep up with those shifts.
And speaking of shifts, Michael, you've worked at really traditional type of businesses, but somewhat, you're always on the latest technology. Like, what's your secret?
Well, I don't know about a secret, but I love technology. And having a love of technology, what a great opportunity to do something you love and get paid for it too. But beyond that, the technology industry is changing so rapidly, and I think the pace of change is really accelerating. If you look at Napster, what you were just talking about, that's just because the file sizes, audio and music was first, but now, as we all know, it's video, and everything is going to be delivered over the internet. And so, as a technologist, it's great to kind of peer around the corner and see what's happening. And so, I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley. Go to the venture capitalists and kind of see what's new and what's coming, what the trends are, and where they're investing. And so I get an awful lot from that. And then I'm just a voracious reader, and I read all kinds of magazines, articles, and blogs and websites. I love to listen to podcasts, which I think really have kind of come in their own recently, and you can get all kinds of great content in podcasts, and Audible. And so just consuming more information kind of gives me a competitive advantage.
Gotcha. And Matt, you talked a little bit about technology kind of changing the strategy when it comes down to your artists. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Like, now when you think of technology helping the growth or even helping the launch of an album, how has that shifted for you?
The one thing I think we've kind of come to accept is that when you finally think you know everything, that's when you know you're being lazy. Because if you think you know everything, that means you definitely don't know what's coming around the corner. Even as of today, like I could have said 2 months ago, I think we got it handled, and now everyone's talking about Musical.ly. which is like the new app. Songs are breaking on it. There's
Yep.
a new crop of stars. Now we got to chase a whole new group of influencers to try and chase down. It's, our pitch when we're going to manage artists is usually that we didn't, all of our staff is mostly under 40. And half our pitches, we didn't grow up in the 90s. We didn't work in music in the 90s, so we're not sort of tainted by assuming that the label's gonna do all the work. That you can kind of make the music, give it to somebody, they'll do all the marketing and promo, and you go tour and everyone's happy. Like those, I never got to enjoy those days. With an artist like Steve Aoki, I've had to learn how do you build a multi-million-dollar business without ever having a radio hit. He owns his own label. He's a completely self-sustaining machine. So we've spent a lot of time in our company specifically. I think our digital marketing department is about 10%, maybe more of our entire staff. Every single artist has to have a social media person. Every single artist has to have a social media plan, digital marketing plan. I tell all of our artists from day one when they sign with a record label, and I don't mean to do any disservice to labels because some of them are great, but to set their expectations in the right place, I say it's a distributor, it's a bank. Anything above and beyond that is icing on the cake. Don't expect that they're going to find you licenses, they're going to bring in opportunities. We're going to do all that. And God bless them if they deliver anything on top of it.
And Michael, we talked about you finding technology, but then you've had to take that technology and then teach the business how to use it. What has been your strategy around that?
Well, I think that one of the toughest things any CIO has to do is manage change, and people inherently don't like change. And so when you're trying to implement a new technology that you really believe in, you have to go out there and figure out a way to convince them to do it. There's different ways at different companies that's successful. But that's really what I've leveraged and made successful for me.
So to go back to the artist side of things, so you've been able to find a strategy, but how are you monetizing on that? Because I remember in my label days, you had a really big advance, and if you did really well, you get $1 million from the record company that you'd spend between recording and also your videos. And then you get a publishing deal. But these days, those deals don't exist anymore.
Yeah, well, that's not quite true. Those deals exist if you have a great moment in time and with the right act. But monetizing your creative content is not as much of a priority as it used to be. Monetizing your live appearances is where the majority of the money is at. And you can talk to pretty much every artist on the planet, no matter how successful they are in their music, it's dwarfed by the touring income. So for all of my artists, we look at the music, not to say that they don't put their heart, blood, and souls into that music, but as the manager, it's a marketing platform to push the live touring. Obviously, without the music, there is nothing. There's no excuse to be even on the road. There's no excuse to be doing anything, but they can't put out something and then just live off of the income of it. It's all about the touring, and you can't tour without sustaining your fan base with new music content. The bigger issue now has become, the traditional album cycle. You could look at somebody like Gwen Stefani, who isn't in the zeitgeist as much as maybe her label wants her to be, but she took 8 years off, 9 years off. Like, you just can't do that anymore. Most of the dance artists, and they've been doing this for a while, put out a song every 6 to 8 weeks. And you're seeing the hip hop artists doing that as well. And now you're seeing all the pop artists. Now the major labels will tell you, you can't wait 2 years between albums. We need to be putting out something every 6 months. You need to keep your fan base engaged because attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and kids are moving on. People are already saying that's so 2016.
I wonder how much longer we're calling them albums.
That's a good point, actually.
Most of the deals I structure now, I can't think of a deal that we structured as an album deal. We always structure all of our deals now as album or equivalent singles, EPs, et cetera. So you have all the flexibility. It's like, hey, instead of doing an album, why don't I do 2 singles and 2 4-track EPs? It's still 10 songs, it's still the same amount of income, but that can last me a longer time. And also, there are certain artists that are built for albums because it's a musical listening experience from beginning to end. But the majority of artists and the majority of fans,
Built for a song.
Yeah, they're built for a song. So I have many artists that put their blood, sweat, and tears into a 14-track album, and then are so dejected because 6 months later, people are only familiar with the first four
first four
songs.
songs.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So breaking it down into
Yeah.
like kind of snackable, bite-sized pieces and distributing it over a longer period of time, rather than just dropping this huge piece of musical and lyrical content at once, is
Yeah.
becoming a more normal strategy.
Centered. Michael, you've been in a business that's actually impacted the world, because CIA not only has talent, but it also has on-camera talent. It also has director. It manages so many assets and so much content. I know that security has to be one of your big concerns.
Security absolutely is, and the nature has really changed. Post the Sony hack, I now think that that was a real tipping point in cybersecurity. It's now a board-level discussion at every company in America. And it used to be, I remember getting woken up by the FBI saying Anonymous is attacking your website. That's nothing compared to what's going on now. Now you've got cyber criminals and nation states attacking you, and it's just a completely different game. And it's unfortunately one of those things where you're never going to be done. It's like spy versus spy. It's always back and forth. And so it keeps you up at night. You really have to work at it. And then kind of next to cybersecurity, I think, is privacy. And in kind of a post-Snowden world, we're seeing that if you're a global company, lots of nations, states, are now enacting nationalistic laws around data location and privacy. And you've seen this at Box. And the expectations around privacy for clients and for ultimate consumers is something else you got to worry about.
I mean, it feels like you're wearing so many hats in this role, but can you talk to us a little bit about the evolution of your role in the past 25 years?
Wow. Well, I think mobility has been a huge thing. Being able to deliver technology or information to the people who need it when they're out and about is one big arc that's really been important in the cloud, and obviously all the mobile devices have enabled that. But I think that the change in at least my role, where I've kind of been able to be elevated, is it used to be IT and CIOs were really focused on keeping the lights on and technology and maintaining that technology. And now, because every second of every day, more and more of our lives and our customer lives and our client lives are digital, right? And so therefore, I have more of an opportunity to impact that part of their lives. And so it kind of elevates the position, I think, for progressive CIOs. They can really be integral to the business and creating business outcomes through innovations that just weren't possible before.
I'm curious, though, in the pre-Napster era of your tenure at CAA, what did you spend the majority of your time on? Kind of in the internet, was in the dawn of the internet. Say 91 to like 99. Those first 10 years.
It was break fix, just trying to keep the lights on. Nothing strategic at all. It was very tactical. And the internet and just connected together just changed everything.
Just getting everyone email addresses. That was a big deal.
Oh, you would, there's been many times when I've known the right thing to do, like literally getting on the internet or getting, the ca.com domain and things that I had to do and then ask for forgiveness later. People don't like change.
I can imagine in the early 90s, like convincing agents to use an email address would be an issue.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
I mean, it's so challenging because the nature of the agency business has not changed, and yet technology is completely disrupted the way that content is built and the way that content is distributed.
Well, if you think about it, agencies don't have any SKUs, they don't have any products. It's all intellectual property, and so technology, as it amplifies that and accelerates that, has been a godsend. But for clients, it really changes business models. Go back to Napster. I mean, the music industry has certainly changed. They were the first one, once again, because of the file sizes, but now it's happening across every single part of the business.
Absolutely. Speaking of technology, can you guys share a little bit about what are the tools that you use? Like, for example, Matt, what are the tools that you use from a technology perspective with your artists?
We're really, really data-driven. So as I mentioned, about 10 to 15% of our staff is all on digital marketing. One of the biggest benefits lately is Spotify has been a little more generous with the data. So that has definitely changed our strategy. The strategy with iTunes, which is still a huge player, has traditionally been build up this sort of wealth of interest and then go for first week. And then hopefully that gets you on the charts, and then you kind of build from there. And then, but even then, the only data you get really is sales and demographic data. Not even age, just where the sale originated. With Spotify, it's been really interesting as they've opened up the API to see age data, how they're discovering. I can see how a fan has discovered it. Did they discover it through a saved playlist? Do they discover it through your artist's homepage? Do they discover it through a Spotify playlist, through a user-generated playlist? And what do all those things mean? When you see a bump in plays, you can dive in and see where did that come from? Oh, it came from this playlist. Why we got added? It's so much more analytical. And lucky for us, we've been so social media focused. We've been spending countless thousands of hours on Facebook analytics, trying to get Instagram analytics, Twitter, trying to get as much information as possible. So when Spotify finally opened up that API and we could go in and look at stuff, it changed everything. All of a sudden, we're marketing in a completely different fashion, realizing maybe, perfect example, we used to premiere a song on SoundCloud in the iTunes days, a month out, 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out. The plan was, there aren't that many people on SoundCloud. You just want to build buzz because you want everyone to know that when it's available, they want to buy it. And we want that big first week number. It's like a club. You want to build a line at the door before you open the doors. Now if we premiere on SoundCloud, it happens within 8 to 10 hours of the song going live everywhere else. Just so you can go to some outlet and say, hey, you get an exclusive premiere, knowing that within 8 hours, by midnight, it's going to be available on Spotify, because you do want to monetize every single play, and you don't want to have a SoundCloud play not cut against a Spotify play, because every single play counts.
Yeah, but from a internal perspective, how do you keep everything updated? Like, what are the tools that you use from an enterprise perspective?
Well, we use Box a lot. I could tell you without a doubt, pretty much our entire lives are on Box. So we have folders for every individual. We have an enterprise account for our entire company. We've had it for, we've talked about this before, since you first kind of opened the company. For the life of me, I can't remember where I heard about it, but I was like, oh, this is great. We can all share files in a secure manner. And then, especially music artists, and I think film being the same way, some of these files are so huge. So I've got Steve's entire catalog. I've got the individual stems, the session files, like multiple gigabytes of files per song, all stored on these huge. I mean, at this point, I can click 15 times before I even get to the song I want, because they're so buried in like broken down folders. Oh, okay, music, remixes, that artist, that song. Okay, now I need the stems. Like, I'm clicking forever. But it's become a really robust. I'm sure we've got terabytes and terabytes, hundreds of terabytes of data from all of our artists, and it's everything from their calendars to their music files to their photos to their tour riders. It makes it a lot easier in the old days, meaning like 5-10 years ago. You would send out a contract to a show and you'd attach like 15 things. Here's the tour rider, here's the photo, here's the logo, blah, blah. Now, CA, we have tons of artists. Here's a contract, go to this link for all the artist assets. And everything's built there. And we didn't have to, prior to that, people would do that, but you'd need some sort of custom built solution. So you'd have to go to your web designer and have them create a page for each artist. And I know all the agencies had this. And every time you wanted to update it, you had to email the files to the IT guy. He'd have to go back to the back end and update. 2 weeks later, you'd get your new photos been uploaded. Now it's,
almost
10
instant.
seconds. Yeah.
I feel like one thing that technology has done is that it's helped artists own more of their names and domains and essentially pretty much own the pace at which they want to put content out. And I feel like before that, you had a lot of gatekeepers. You had like the label gatekeeper, you had the distribution company gatekeeper, and if you were at a studio, you had to wait. But I feel like if you're a content creator now and you are willing to go out there and really work hard, there are so many more outlets for you.
It's completely democratized, the
process.
entire landscape. Yeah, anybody now. I think maybe MySpace was the very first one to really kind of disrupt things in that way, where you suddenly had artists like Mickey Avalon and Hollywood Undead coming out of MySpace, and people were like, look at this artist who just exists in this one little bubble could really be relevant. But nowadays, there's a million platforms. Like I said, you can go to Musical.ly now. You can be a YouTube star. You can be a Vine star. You can be an artist that goes on Indiegogo or Patreon. There's so many outlets. You want to self-fund, you want to self-release, you want to go directly to iTunes.
It allows the artist to have a direct relationship with the ultimate consumers and bypass those gatekeepers you were talking about.
And I still feel like the dream, though, speaking of CA, the dream still is to have that big contract and be part of that big agency, but it also feels like CA's had to change a little bit of their business model, because I know now they have a really strong digital department, and I'm assuming that you've had to support those type of changes.
Absolutely. We got to skate to where the puck is going. Otherwise you're not going to be around. And
my favorite quote, by the way.
I'm sorry?
That's one of my favorite quotes, by the way. Be where the puck is going, not where the puck is at.
I'm going to start using it. It's great.
Wayne Gretzky's fantastic. But as digital and as all these platforms you're talking about come out, we have to understand that and what it means. and what does it mean for changing business models for our clients? And you know, you got part of it is education, especially in like the sports side of our business. You know, and you get these young, especially like hockey stars that are like in their teens. You know, they don't really understand the implications of a tweet or something they're going to say on Facebook or whatever, some Snapchat, you know, down the road. So you got to educate them on this, and it's so internally I have to be able ahead of that and understand that so I can support that and make best use for our clients.
Yeah, and so can you talk us a little bit about the tools that you've been using? Because as I said earlier, you've always been on the edge of what's next, but what has been really impactful for you that's helped you from a technology perspective?
Well, you know, broadly it's a shift to the cloud, and we're practically 100% in the cloud now. And so I look for a software as a service, a SaaS solution like Box or Office 365, you know, for Microsoft and collaboration documents first. And you know, we do that, and we have this large, you know, I don't know, 50 or 60 of those that we kind of cobble together to create the competing solution. But for areas where we feel like we could really differentiate or get competitive advantage, we write custom software. And then we try to use these primitives, these built-on things. So if I'm going to store a file, I'm going to store it in Box. I'm not going to figure out a way to do that. I'm going to leverage that. And you know, I always try to educate people. I say, you think about Uber, which is one of the most disruptive companies that's out there. They didn't try to, you know, boil the ocean and do everything. They focused on their matching and their logistics and all that stuff. But when it came to mapping, they just called the Google Maps API, right? And they used Braintree for their payments, and they used Twilio for their communication, stuff like that. They really focused on the core, what's really important to them, and that's what I try to do, really try to separate what is truly going to give you competitive advantage. Everything else, you kind of outsource it and look for best of breed SaaS solutions.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about what technology has done well for artists and in general for the entertainment, but I know there are a lot of challenges, privacy being one of them, security being another, but what are the challenges is technology creating for you guys?
Changing business models. I mean, you know, if you look at, once again, we can go back to the Napster model, but anything, if you look at, you know, the success of Netflix and Amazon and kind of the streaming and the over-the-top stuff, it's tearing down walls and changing business models and changing relationships and change the stuff.
For me, it's keeping up. You know, we say 10 years ago, you wanted to promote a song digitally. You did a MySpace post, maybe you did a Facebook post. And that was it. Maybe Twitter was around. That was pretty much it. Every 4 to 6 months now, there's a game-changing thing, and we have to add it to our list. And I mean, I think maybe a month ago, the Aoki team, we even had to sit down and be like, we need to sit in front of a whiteboard and write down every single thing that is possible to be done to promote something, because all the time we'll release something and someone will go like, hey, did we message bands in town RSVPs about this? Like, oh, crap, I forgot that was a thing. Or did anyone remember to Shazam the song so that it goes out to those followers? And when we were done, there were at least like 50 items from, I mean, every Pandora, Shazam, like just going down this litany of things of, now every platform has realized that, you know, influencers are the future. So they've created ways for influencers to communicate with their fans, and they all have millions and millions of followers, and you don't want to leave any stone unturned. So yeah, when you want to message something out, it's so much work, and then keeping like the last thing I need is Musical.ly around now. That's another one, but
that's another platform.
It's like it cuts both ways. Like it gives you a great opportunity to reach a new crop of fans that maybe you couldn't find a way to reach. But
yeah.
It's just
absolutely.
Another thing.
And in Hollywood, you know, perception is everything, right? Yeah. And you don't want to be the guy that's having your clients on MySpace. You want to be a Musical.ly or one of the new hip ones, right?
100%.
But I will say, I tell people this all the time. At the end of the day, at least for me, it's the music business. And if Adele didn't have a Twitter account or a Facebook page, wouldn't affect things. She'd be fine. You know, there are certain artists, maybe it's Radiohead, maybe it's Coldplay, maybe that just transcend all of that. And then there's artists like Steve or Taylor Swift or Katy Perry that they have this huge social media machine around them that amplifies what they're doing. They're already at a great level, but they have a personality that's conducive to interacting with their fans. And some acts aren't that, and you don't have to be that. You know,
and the desire, right?
Exactly. You have to really want to have that connection. And if you're not that person, then maybe you're Radiohead and you just kind of lean into it and like you do almost nothing, and it makes your fans want you that much more. But it's a few and far between that you can pull that off.
I think with Radiohead, the fact that they started before the actual Napster years is also what's made them that, because they already had a pretty dedicated fan base. And I think, to your point, at the end of the day, it is all about the song, it is all about the story. You can have the best technology, but if the content is not there, you're probably not going to get to that mass success.
The content's not there, there's no box.
Yeah.
There's no box. Absolutely. Good point.
At the end of the day, we're all basically selling content, whether it be an actor who can act or an athlete who's participating in a sport. We're all basically selling content that we want devoured by some consumers, but that content needs to be stored somewhere, the content needs to be displayed somewhere, the content needs to be created somewhere, and at the end of the day, we're all kind of beholden to the content.
What would you like to see the most from technology companies that you're not seeing currently?
I'd like to see more access to data through APIs. I think that data and analytics is really where we're going to be able to move the needle as far as business is concerned. And then the second thing is continued push on ease of use. I really think it's critical that in the enterprise space, technology gets as easy to use as it is in our consumer lives.
For me, it's probably just getting access to the data. Some people are more giving. It's hard.
That's a really good point.
It's been hard to get. For years, it's hard to get Instagram analytics. They finally gave it to you, and you just had to go off of likes. Whereas Facebook was kind of very far ahead. It's hard to get iTunes data, Apple Music data, but Spotify is very generous with it. So for us, at least, we tend to lean more on the platforms that give us the data because we can better fine-tune our marketing tactics and our marketing strategies. Otherwise, we're kind of poking around in the dark, hoping that we get it right.
Yeah. So Matt, I know that there's a documentary coming up with Steve. What's next?
Outside of that?
Well,
that?
Just in general. What are you guys doing this summer?
So Steve is currently in Europe. Every summer he spends mostly in Europe, playing Ibiza, Mallorca, all the festivals, Reading Leaves, that kind of stuff. What you mentioned, we spent the last 3.5, 4 years working on a documentary with the same guys who did Jiro Dreams of Sushi and Chef's Table. Everyone thought we were doing this big DJ documentary, EDM documentary. That wasn't the intention at all. It's more of a documentary about Steve and his relationship with his father and what it's like to grow up as Asian American in the U.S., and especially growing up in a very white society in Newport Beach, and how everyone thought he had a silver spoon in his mouth, but he really didn't get any financial support whatsoever. But that's going to be coming out as a Netflix original this summer, so that's a big moment for us. We'll be doing tons of press around that. He's been working on his new album, Neon Future 3. The first two came out the last 2 years. That'll be early 2017, and then I've got a bunch of other artists. RAC's working on a new album. Classics recently released their album. It's when you have as many artists as I have, there's never a dull moment. When Steve goes to Europe for the summer, great. That means that I've got some other art classics put on an album right when Steve left. So there's no
I
rest
also
for the
noticed
weekend.
that Blink-182 is sold out, is selling out every arena in the
Yeah,
country.
I mean, Blink was a big. Blink is a big moment for us. For those that don't know, we've managed Blink since prior to their reunion in 08-09. We share a client over at CAA. But that was a great example of sort of bucking the system. The last album was with Interscope, who did a great job. But this album, they decided to go it their own. They did a BMG rights deal, just as a distributor, and they got the #1 album in the country, number one album in the world, #1 in UK, #1 in US. Their touring has taken off. They've added doubles in the Forum to Irvine to MSGs. That was a big moment for us. And that was a great moment because the team that works on Blink also works on a lot of the dance artists, and they're taking a lot of the strategies that we've learned from dance artists who are super engaged with fans, who it isn't about just dropping something and letting everyone go to it. They were releasing teaser footage, they made skit videos, they really engaged all the social media platforms, and it worked. It kind of proved that if you took a great act that had great music and you applied some of these new school principles to it that the dance and the hip hop guys have been doing for years, you got a marriage made in heaven.
So, Michael, what do you think is next for technology companies?
Well, and I think it's kind of unfortunate, but I see a lot of consolidation in the industry. And, if you've been around long enough, you kind of see this pendulum back and forth, and you're seeing mergers and acquisitions pick up. You're seeing some of the old technology incumbents that are struggling with the change from the kind of on-prem licensed software world that they were good at to this new cloud mobile world. Some are splitting up. Others are getting, coming together. But I see a lot of consolidation, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. But I think long term that'll be good, because then it'll be a whole new round of innovation for young startups to come and disrupt and start the whole cycle all over.
Is there a bit of a changing of the guard when you see companies like AOL and Yahoo, who are now sort of dinosaurs in the digital space, when 15 years ago they were
The disruptors.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You gotta evolve to survive. And yeah, I totally agree with that.
And it seems like consumers are pretty much dictating who's going to become a dinosaur as far as conservation of technology is concerned.
Yeah, it's interesting watching Facebook continually pivot. As I remember, it was like maybe 3 years ago, everyone was criticizing them for their mobile strategy or lack thereof. And now it's like something like 70% of their income is all from mobile, and Facebook is completely mobile driven. But they're, to Mark Zuckerberg's credit, they're great at pivoting. They see it. They're not necessarily the first mover. And I think at that size, you shouldn't necessarily be.
No.
I'm used to be, at least, and still I'm pretty good friends with Tom from MySpace. And that was his whole thing. It was always like, we don't try to be, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We see a great thing, we just tack it on. And that's kind of how MySpace grew. It was just keep adding on little features as they saw someone else do it.
Yeah.
But Zuck is brilliant at seeing what's next, And while the Facebook machine is still going, he buys up WhatsApp for what people think is an insane amount of money, but in hindsight, maybe not.
Instagram.
And Instagram.
9 employees for $1 billion.
And then he organically built up Facebook Messenger, which just passed 1 billion users last week. Yeah. And I think where his vision is with AI and chatbots and stuff like that, that's going to be the next big thing.
And I'd like to think that in the enterprise space, which has to support all of these companies, whether they're entertainment and non-entertainment, there has to be more disruption as well when it comes down to being able to actually make sure that you're productive, effective, and quick.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank the two of you. This has been a great conversation. I can talk to you guys all day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.